From epic scenic drives and crystal clear alpine lakes to towering peaks above the clouds, Rocky Mountain National Park has it all. The highest continuously paved road in the US, jaw-dropping hiking trails, unreal wildlife, breathtaking views from over 12,000 feet of elevation, and even one of America's most haunted hotels perched above the gateway town of Estes Park.
In this video, we are sharing with you 10 unforgettable things you need to experience when you visit. And stick around till the end for some important tips, including seasonal closures, reservation requirements, and more.
We're Ryan and Manuel, and welcome to Colorado's Rocky Mountain National Park.
The first thing you absolutely can't miss is Bear Lake. Bear Lake is the perfect introduction to Rocky Mountain National Park, as it's an easy and mostly flat 0.5-mile walk that offers a real high alpine experience with very little effort and a huge payoff. We recommend doing this walk in the early morning, as the reflection of the mountains on the lake is just beautiful. We also love its dense pine forest and the glacier-carved scenery that make it, for us, an absolute must-do.
Bear Lake is also the starting point for our next recommendation, which is more adventurous and even more breathtaking. We're talking about Nymph Lake, Dream Lake, Emerald Lake, and Lake Haiyaha, all part of the same trail system that showcases the park's best scenery. If you have a few hours, we recommend visiting all four. The first one you will see is Nymph Lake, that you will reach after about half a mile with a fairly easy, slightly uphill stroll. Nymph Lake is a small, peaceful lake framed by forest and dotted with lily pads in the summer. If you keep going for another 0.7 miles through beautiful streams and a more uphill path, you will reach one of the most photographed spots in the park, Dream Lake, with its dramatic peaks rising directly above its glassy surface. This feels like a real classic Rockies experience, and if you can, we recommend getting at least to this lake. The views from here are incredible.
From Dream Lake, many hikers continue on to Emerald Lake, which is stunning. But if you want a more rugged, less crowded experience, we recommend continuing towards Lake Haiyaha. To get there, it's a 1.5-mile hike. It can be at times challenging, but it's totally worth it. The trail gets very rocky towards the end, so you have to climb over granite boulders to find your own viewpoint or sitting spot, as there is no clear shoreline path. The views are so unique, and we promise you will not easily forget them. If you made it to Lake Haiyaha, the trail back to the parking lot is just over 2 miles.
Before we continue with other incredible must-dos inside the national park, including, spoiler alert, a drive at 12,000 feet of elevation above the tundra, how about a stop at the gateway town of Estes Park? Estes Park blends alpine beauty with small town charm and is the perfect place to have a stroll, do some shopping, have lunch or dinner at one of the many great restaurants, or try some delicious taffy. It's historic, lively, and one of the most beautiful towns you will see. But for us, the highlight here is a visit to the infamous Stanley Hotel. Yes, the very hotel that inspired Stephen King to write his masterpiece The Shining during a stay in 1974 when the hotel was nearly empty at the end of the tourist season.
You can freely walk around the main areas of the hotel, but if you want to see more, we recommend taking one of the tours where you can learn more about Fred and Oscar Stanley, who in 1909 built the hotel, but also about the paranormal activities that make the Stanley Hotel one of the most haunted in America. While technically not inside the national park, this is an absolute must-do when you visit.
Our next recommendation in Rocky Mountain National Park is the Old Fall River Road, one of the most historic and scenic drives in the park. Built in the early 1900s, it was the park's first automobile route to the high alpine tundra, and before that, it was used by Native American tribes for hunting and traveling, and today, it still feels like an old mountain adventure. The one-way 9-mile drive is narrow, mainly uphill, and mostly on gravel, so of course be careful when you drive it. especially on the switchbacks. The views are absolutely incredible as you will drive through dense pine forests at the beginning and open alpine tundra above the tree line at the end, and you might even have a surprise wildlife encounter.
There are several stops along the road, but a favorite is Chasm Falls, one of the most accessible and scenic waterfalls in the park. At the viewpoint, you will stand above the gorge looking down at the waterfall crashing through the chasm. Be aware that the path is very short but steep. As you approach the end of the road, you will drive through the Fall River Pass, which is where the tundra really begins. This high-altitude landscape, where conditions are too harsh for trees to grow, is one of the most iconic in the Rockies, and there are several pullouts if you want to stop, but be aware that you are not allowed to walk on this landscape.
The final stop on the Old Fall River Road is also our next recommendation, even if you don't necessarily have to use the Old Fall River Road to reach it. It's the Alpine Visitor Center. This is not only the highest visitor center in any US national park at almost 12,000 feet of elevation, but it's also one of the best places to observe panoramic overlooks on the endless mountain ridges and the tundra stretching in every direction. At this elevation, the air is noticeably thinner, so we recommend staying hydrated and not pushing it. Also, be aware that the weather here can change super quickly, especially with storms in the afternoon, which is why many visitors try to reach the Alpine Visitor Center earlier in the day. When you are here, make sure you head inside to check out the very informative exhibits and the huge shop.
And if you were looking for a memorable walk that starts from here, how about the Alpine Ridge Trail? This is a steep but fairly easy 0.6 miles round trip that gives you the perfect chance to view the Alpine tundra, distant mountain ranges, dramatic drop-offs, and huge skies. At the top, there's a rocky overlook with panoramic views across the Rockies, and if you're lucky, you can catch a glimpse of the marmots and pikas that live here, which unfortunately we didn't see on our last visit.
Next up is probably the most famous area of Rocky Mountain National Park, the Trail Ridge Road, that connects the towns of Estes Park and Grand Lake. If you are at the Alpine Visitor Center, you are already here, but we totally recommend driving further to really take it in. The Trail Ridge Road is the highest elevation continuously paved road in the US and is a real must-do. There are so many stops along the way, including Milner Pass, where you can see the Continental Divide, and many viewpoints. But make sure you don't go wondering if the weather is not cooperating, as being exposed to lightning can be very dangerous. Last time we went, we had to head down much earlier because of this, even if the views were absolutely incredible.
Our next recommendation is the Holzwarth Historic Site, located on the west side of Rocky Mountain National Park, which is more wide with open valleys, rivers, and a lot less crowds. This is the site where, in 1917, German immigrants John and Sophia Holzwarth built their home, thanks to the Homestead Act of 1862. Here you can learn the stories of their family, from the harsh winters they spent in the valley to the opening of a German-style inn on the property that welcomed the first visitors in the area after the opening of the Fall River Road. They then gradually began to change their home into a dude ranch, which would become known as the Holzwarth Trout Lodge. It's a very interesting stop and one we totally recommend.
Also on the west side of Rocky Mountain National Park is the Coyote Valley Trail, a short, flat, and very scenic trail that follows the early stretch of the Colorado River as it flows gently through wide meadows surrounded by mountains. We love this trail as it's extremely different from the peaks and lakes of the east side of the park and the sparse and raw tundra. The trail is about 1 mile long, and you will love exploring its river bends and willow and grass wetlands.
Before we share some essential tips, it's time for our final recommendation, which is actually a combination of two very easy, separate trails that also happen to be wheelchair accessible.
The first one is Sprague Lake, a 0.8 mile loop that features many benches, lookouts, and an accessible fishing pier with incredible views on the peaks and pine forests and great chances to spot wildlife. The second one is Alluvial Fan, a dramatic waterfall and boulder field area formed in 1982 when the dam above the valley failed, sending millions of gallons of water crashing down the mountain, creating the massive fan-shaped landscape you see today.
And before we say goodbye, we want to share with you 4 essential tips to make your visit to Rocky Mountain National Park even smoother.
Number 1. At the time of filming, if you're visiting between May and October, you'll need a timed entry reservation to enter most areas of the park between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. However, this does not include the Bear Lake corridor. If you plan to visit the Bear Lake area, which includes some of the park's most popular and breathtaking hikes, you'll need a separate reservation for entry between 5 a.m. and 6 p.m. We recommend checking the official National Park Service website for the latest details and reservation information. It may sound complicated at first, but the system is actually pretty easy once you understand it.
Number 2. Be aware that some of the areas of the park are seasonal, including the Old Fall River Road, which normally opens July to October, and the Trail Ridge Road, that usually is open from late May to October, depending on snow. Check the National Park website for opening dates.
Number 3. Be prepared for all kinds of weather, as it can change incredibly fast, especially at higher elevations. A sunny morning can quickly turn into wind, rain, hail, or even snow within a few hours. Temperatures also vary dramatically between valleys and alpine tundra areas.
Number 4. Be careful of high altitude, as this could affect you more than you would expect, and especially in popular areas including the Trail Ridge Road and the Alpine Visitor Center that rise above 12,000 feet. If you feel tired, short of breath, or dizzy, make sure you get yourself to lower elevations, stay hydrated, and eat regularly so your body can adjust to the altitude.
We don't have another tip, but if we had one more, it would be have an amazing time if you visit the incredible Rocky Mountain National Park. This is truly one of our favorite US national parks and a place we recommend everyone visit.
Thank you so much for coming along. And if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell to never miss an adventure.
And now, see you down the road!